over 150 years between them of screwing the public. I think we need a lot more youth leadership. We need a lot more leadership from young people, and we need a lot more Greens to be running for office every time, every office, every race. We need to actually actively engage our communities to bring the power to the people, because we're the only party that doesn't accept corporate donations right now. We're the only party that has some nationwide recognition, even though we're a joke to a lot of other people. We need to start taking ourselves seriously and run more people for office and be participatory in our democracy, because this is the only way we're going to get that 5% to get FEC funding, to get that 15% to get on the national stage for debates. I advise anybody who calls himself a Green right now to find a race next year or this year, if there's an opportunity to run for office this year. We got to put our message out there, and unfortunately we're allowing the Democrats and the Republicans to distort what the Green Party is, saying that we want to tax cow farts or that the Green New Deal is communist. We need to actually get out there and get our message out, and the only way we can do that is by running our own candidates. I'm Dennis Lambert, and I'm running for president. My website's www.dlpotus2020.com. My social media, DLPOTUS2020. Green Party. Peace and love.
And I believe we have your website, I hope it's your website, linked on the ballot. At least there's something there for you.
Thank you, Dennis. That's time. Good job.
And who's can I call on Kent Mesplay next? And then we need to check and see who. I believe there are 3 waiting, and I've forgotten who one of them is.
Yes, I'd be delighted to speak. Thank you to the Pacific Green Party for having me on. I entered this race rather late, so but there's still much to say, and much that you as a general viewer can do to really influence things. My website's mesplay.org. I see that up. Also, during one of the prior campaign cycles, a fan put up a fan page on Facebook. So I've been using @PresKent, Kent Mesplay on Facebook as well. I've been running to, among other things, change our general culture to be more giving. If you think about the basic problems we have, this nation in general really fits the Lakota pejorative of wasichu quite well, meaning one who takes the best part, like a spoiled child who grabs a food morsel away before, say, an elder can get it. And if you look at our current commander-in-chief, you see this very bad behavior. As candidate Williamson, and I'm sure others have said, Trump didn't make the system made Trump. So just getting rid of Trump is not enough. So what I've been encouraging people to do, and this is something that I can say I've contributed as of late, is to flip your non-vote green. Dissent with Kent is the tagline. But when you flip your non-vote green, you help build a party that was endorsed by Ralph Nader, who was a candidate in '96 and 2000. And you're creating that third party. You're helping to build that third party in a country where alternative parties are all but illegal. And so flip your non-vote green. If you're one of the over 40% of people who normally don't vote, you're probably in part voting out of disgust, or not voting out of disgust with the system, and you are part of the largest voter bloc. True independents are also a large part. In the previous campaign, I reached out to celebrities. Roseanne Barr agreed to be my running mate. I couldn't do much with that, and Roseanne can be a bit off the rails as well. Plus, as a Zionist, the party doesn't favor behavior that supports apartheid, quite frankly. This time I've sent letters to Jesse Ventura. I'm not sure that they got through, asking him to be my running mate. This would be like last minute football Hail Mary play. I've looked at Jesse's policies and he's quite enlightened. There's a lot of overlap, and he is a green right now. This would encourage people to jump on board. We can't vote for status quo
remaining.
Joe, thank you, or T. Rump. These men have nothing to offer our country, and Donald Trump is extremely dangerous. In terms of policies, I pretty much fit in with the pack. I believe in universal health care, similar to Medicare for all. There are different ways to roll this out. Probably my longest advocacy has been regarding indigenous people. If you think you are someone who's being attacked by our current system, imagine what it is to live in a rainforest surrounded by what is just viewed as resources by others. We saw this recently actually in Bolivia, where an indigenous leader was displaced because of this nation coveting lithium, but no one really puts it that way. Few people talk about how in our role as world policemen, we're not really policing for the good of all. We are complicit in allowing oligarchy to strip resources from around the world. So ending war is extremely important. I've been working on steps, because pretty soon this campaign is going to be over, working on steps to work as a citizen diplomat. I've been working on a letter to Kim Jong-un to ban the death penalty in his country. And from that, we can take steps to truly end war. And when we do that, we'll free up resources so that we can handle the other problems, our nation's crumbling infrastructure, the shift to a new economy, largely locally based, which is really the way to go. It makes us stronger, more resilient, more self-reliant, if we move toward being sustainable at a local level. The other green issues are, the standard electoral reform. I mean, if you look at nonprofit organizations like representus.org, they really spell it out. There's much to do there. I've talked about that for a long time. Anyway, that's kind of a bit of a scattershot. Thank you for having me on. And I look forward to some great discussion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Is there another presidential candidate online available?
I'm here.
And you are?
Sedinam Moyowasifza.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
I see documents up, so I'm just figuring I'm okay. I don't see me. I don't see myself, so I'm concerned.
We can hear you.
Okay.
And
all right. I want to see
now we can see you.
I want to
I
see
at least have seen pictures of you. Go ahead.
Got a new haircut.
There you are.
Greetings from southern central Los Angeles. I bring greetings to you of resistance and protest in Los Angeles. Breaking curfew every night. Black Lives Matter. Enough. What I understood is I'm doing 2 minutes of just introducing myself.
No, I think you have 5.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Started a minute ago.
I couldn't get
5
on, so
total.
I appreciate it. I
And
see
some
2
warning
faces
when you
I
run
know.
out.
Okay, no problem. So how come I'm the best candidate to be the Green Party nominee in 2020? I'm a Black woman. Not only am I a Black woman, I'm a Black woman who's been a Green before it was popular to be Black and Green. I knew clearly that I, as a Black woman joining a majority European DNA party, racism was something I had to deal with. I have never wavered from being anti-racist. It wasn't until last year during the ANC in Massachusetts that I sat there, the only Black woman on a table full of men. And it hit me as I'm looking into the audience, some of the concepts I had about the Green Party, they weren't on point. So as I'm sitting there, I had to reflect on myself and how I became a Green, which is because I voted for Al Gore, held my nose for Lieberman, and he failed me, and I had to examine my own privilege. So I came to the Green Party as a 40-year-old, intelligent, experienced Black woman. So I came, as I said, ready to deal with and tackle ending white privilege and ending racism. But I didn't have the tools at the time I started. So that sitting in the audience made me aware that I'm missing something. So I went on a search from July to August, trying to find out what it is that I got wrong, and I found it. How to become anti-racist. I knew our party didn't have it right. And now I started everywhere I went, preaching and pushing how to become anti-racist. Anytime you'll see me on a video up into Detroit, I held up Ibrahim Kennedy's book, How to Become Anti-Racist. Our campaign, the only campaign who has been bold enough to confront male privilege. How can we have 3 males running in the Green Party in 2020 when you got me, a soul sister that's more experienced internationally than all 3 of them combined? What are the problems that
3 minutes remaining.
I saw it, thank you, that saw me, a former presidential candidate, a former vice presidential candidate, and a sophisticated woman not getting in there? It's male privilege and white entitlement within our party. Look who they've been pushing, Brother Howie. And I've asked him to relinquish his European male privilege, as I have asked Dario, as well as David. Something's wrong with that picture. So our campaign back in December started an open read and discussion series of Ibrahim Kennedy's book. Fortunately, Chad, Dennis, and David attended. We have relaunched this for June. It was timely. So we're asking all Green Party members to join us every Sunday for an hour for a green open read of how to become anti-racist. I'm challenging our party to come up with the anti-racist platform so that we in the 21st century become the first and only openly anti-racist party in America. That's what we should do, and that's what we must do. And you need a candidate who had the leadership to deal with that from day one. I, Sedinam Moyowasifza, is the most effective ambassador for the green change we seek. Let's do it, y'all. Sedinam 2020. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay.
Thank you,
We get
Sedinam.
to, are people going to ask us questions, Amy?
We have a period for questions after all the presentations. Our time is short, so
Awesome.
we're
Thank you.
trying to budget it.
Awesome, thanks.
So hang around.
All right,
And who is?
I mute myself.
Thank you. Who else is available? I see Dario. We were going to try to get through the declared candidates first. So do we have anybody else waiting?
I saw
Chad Wilson?
Chad.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Okay. Yes. And you're?
Chad Wilson.
Chad,
I'm from
that's right.
Tennessee. I grew up in Tennessee. My pops is a preacher, evangelist, Christian singer. So I grew up in that whole world. They're from Indiana, Church of God of Prophecy, Pentecostal. So I had an interesting childhood being the preacher's kid. So that gives me an interesting take on things that I've applied with life as I've learned my own ignorance. And right now people are trying to reconcile what they believe and what their actions are. And that's one of the things that I've been working on is really stepping back, listening, and understanding what emotions people are feeling, what they're feeling, and trying to find that connection. the root issue, because we're fighting the output of the cultures, the output of all these policies. These policies are written, it's designed this way. It's called social engineering. We're supposed to be, that where they designed it, where we're supposed to be at each other's throats, and how we're supposed to respond to all these different things. We're not taught to try and understand the building blocks of ignorance that people build these things off of, to where we can approach them from that position. We're taught to have that emotional response that only continues fanning the flames. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to be angry and upset, and as we navigate these things, but we're in a unprecedented time because we can connect. We're connecting our minds right now. We're reaching across the world. We can connect in real time. This is amazing, and we're not understanding the gravity of what it is that we have right here. And this is, I believe, is the key, because what we're doing is being able to work these issues out. And if you notice that most people's interaction comes to our media, how we see the world, and the lens. So we have to focus on understanding what lens and what propaganda tools being used on people, so we can reach them individually and based upon their own ignorance or their own culture, their own whatever, because we all have things that we're, and this is what Sedinam was talking about too, in that How to Be an Anti-Racist book. It teaches us to understand all these different mechanisms that create this culture of how we look at the world and how we look at other people, which is amazing. I did want to read this real quick, and I read it every time, but it's super important, and I know it by heart, but I just want to make sure. It said, a long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right, and raises at first a formidable outcry in defense of custom, but the tumult soon subsides. Time makes more converts than reason. And it's so important to say that, because
2 minutes remaining.
Okay, because just giving people the information is not it. It's people understanding how to take the information, how to process it, how to analyze it, how to look at people and what they're focused on. Because a lot of times people will pick one side or the other because it's a two-party system, right? That's our program. You pick a side. So you're only picking a couple of wedge issues that make you pick a side, because it's always the devil, as opposed to, the greater evil. That's the mind. That's the mind thought. So the point is that we have to understand, again, how to reach people and what root level to reach people. And I believe it's censorship, I believe it's corruption, and I believe it's propaganda. Because if we can really have a discussion on these three things that teach us how this works, how the process works, why we're not understanding what people mean and culture and language and intention, and then we're not going to be able to defeat the people that are actually perpetrating these three things: the corruption, the propaganda, and the censorship. ChadWilson.us, and I want to bring something new to the table. You need a cultural coup for political coup. It's important to understand that the vibe, the energy that we create as a party is what's supposed to resonate. We have to be a beacon of what politics is supposed to look like, what community is supposed to look like, and how sharing resources is supposed to look like. And that's something that we're not doing as a party. It's something that we should really focus on and be engaging. Even if we're not, even without a vote cast, we should provide value to people's lives. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And I still see Dario. Is there anybody else waiting at this point?
This is David. I'm here too.
Good, thank you. So go ahead.
Me? Okay.
You're David Rolde.
Yeah, my name is David Rolde. I'm a revolutionary communist, anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist, anti-war activist. I became an activist after the 9/11 false flag attacks, and I live near Boston on land that belongs to the Massachusetts and Nipmuc people. I've been in the Green Party since 2003. So I got in to present like a more radical perspective than some of our some of the other candidates and then our previous presidential candidates have had. So I'm for totally eliminating the U.S. military and weapons industry, not just cutting it by 50% or 75% or some arbitrary amount, because the U.S. military is destroying the world and we can't have hundreds of billions of dollars going for genocide. That's just not going to result in a continuation of life on Earth. We need to shut down the USA and its empire on this continent and everywhere. I'm for decolonization, reparations, and self-determination for Africans, indigenous people, and all oppressed peoples. And I'm for from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Stop all funding to the Zionist entity and boycott Israel. I'm for a revolution, not a New Deal. Like the New Deal is a Democrat Party, Franklin Roosevelt concept to stop us from having a revolution in this country, because the Soviet Union was strong back then. And New Deal is a way to save capitalism. It leaves the people who are in power to stay in power, and they just negotiate to give the people some more crumbs. And that's not what we need. We need a revolution. We need to give reparations and power to the African and indigenous and oppressed people, and stop having stop operating with the European colonial imperialist capitalist state of mind of produce stuff we don't need for profit. And that's not working. We need African and indigenous wisdom to be in power and lead us to live sustainably. So that's what I've been doing. I started campaigning last year, and I haven't been campaigning as much this year. I've had personal problems. I'm disabled with anxiety and problems, but I'm here speaking out again, because we're in a very horrible crisis that the deep state, including Bill Gates, have presented us.
2 minutes remaining.
Have created this coronavirus crisis. It was purposely created, and they have a mass mind control program to make all the people in the United States fearful of this virus. I don't know exactly what the virus is or how dangerous it is, but I don't think it's so far as dangerous as they say. And they have us all scared and socially isolating and wearing masks and not going out and talking to each other. Although I'm glad to see the protests now, but they've still had us scared for months. And people aren't supposed to live this way. People are dying. There's an epidemic of suicide and drug overdoses, and there are people who can't get their medical care because so-called elective medical procedures that were banned for months. And it's a genocide. Especially Black and indigenous communities, people are dying, and they're literally euthanizing older people in nursing homes. As soon as they have any kind of respiratory symptom, they put them on this ventilator that pumps forced air into their lungs and usually results in death. And it's a technological thing where they're coming up with this contact tracing, and they're going to put microchips in all of us, and they're discouraging us from associating with each other in person, and they're basically trying to turn us all into characters in a computer game, and you can't rebel against the computer in a computer game. It's really a nightmare dystopian situation, and we need to stand up against this whole corona apocalypse crisis.
Time. Thank you very much. Time.
Thank you, David. I need to stop and assess. I see Dario, and I see that Howie is with us. Do we have any other candidates waiting at this point?
Didn't I see Dennis? Or did he speak?
Dennis spoke.
Oh, sorry.
The only one we're missing is Susan.
That's a shame.
Is
This
Susan
isn't
here?
here.
I don't see, oh, wow.
I just want to make sure
I'm
we give
texting
everybody,
with Susan right now.
give everybody their chance. Okay. So Dan, we don't have Susan on. Whoop, you're muted.
Nope, we don't.
Okay.
No, we don't.
Maybe she'll make it before we're done. Howie, I think we're going to make the front one. Wait till the end. So I think it's Dario's turn.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. This is one of a number of times that I've been fortunate enough to be hosted by Greens in Oregon, and it's always a pleasure. The activism that you're engaging in is definitely inspiring, and keep at it. Keep pushing forward for the green agenda. Now, those of you who don't know me, my background in terms of political engagement includes being a member of the Youngstown, Ohio Board of Education, where I fought a nasty takeover trying to take control and voice and choice away from a majority Black school district. And this is a part of a national pattern of disenfranchisement in education, a part of the larger pattern of how Black people in this country and people of color in general are being subjugated by a colonialist, hyper-capitalist system. And what informs my fight is the fact that education was a come up for me. I grew up in the ghetto in Newark, New Jersey, as well as in a slum neighborhood in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I saw education as my ticket out. My parents saw that as my ticket out as well. And I include in that my mother, who lived to witness the Newark rebellion, where they were rising up against mistreatment in a similar way to what we are witnessing today. Years later, we still have so much farther to go. And so I, as a human being, as well as a candidate in this race, my aim is to try and serve as a voice for people who have been rendered voiceless. They have voices, but the system has shut them out. And that's why I've engaged in activism in education, trying to end the school to prison pipeline, feeding into the mass incarceration system that is the new plantation system in this country, fighting against fracking that is a part of the larger pattern of environmental racism in places like Youngstown, Ohio, and fighting for the public's right to know and their ability to engage directly with governance in this country. And towards that end, there's some key and important distinctions between our campaign and some of the other campaigns in this race. Yes, we do support the Green New Deal. We understand that time is limited and we must transition to 100% renewable energy and the mobilization that involves. But we see this as a part of a larger pattern of dealing with the wide variety of environmental crises and our relationship with other countries in tackling these crises all across the globe. That's why we have the Green Path Forward, the only campaign with this comprehensive platform, dealing with the diplomatic divide between our country and other countries, ensuring that we will be able to work with the countries we have been trained to hate by this colonialist, imperialist, hyper-capitalist nation, so that we can deal with the looming catastrophe. Countries like China, countries like Russia, countries at the top of the carbon emissions list. We are also dealing with plastic pollution, which feeds into CO2 emissions and nitrogen and phosphorus pollution, as well as the need to reach peak meat by 2030.
2 minutes remaining.
The raising of livestock is contributing to our crisis. We're the only campaign advocating for a Department of Peace, ending the military budget, and switching to a Department of Peace to engage in building up quality of life all across the globe. We are the campaign with the most comprehensive COVID-19 plan. Yes, Medicare for all. Yes, nationalize the medical supply, but also no rent, no mortgage, no evictions, and $2,000 per person per month UBI. And we are the campaign to meet this moment, this challenge we are realizing right now as a country, because we are the campaign, not folding the agenda in regards to people of color under other headings. We are the campaign with the People of Color Bill of Rights. We are tackling police abuse and genocide on our streets, environmental and educational racism, reparations now, ensuring community control and law enforcement, dealing with the the crisis happening on our border and ensuring that we deal with the inequalities in the banking and lending industry and redlining in our communities. And so we are the campaign to meet this moment and to engage in the party building that can fruitfully happen in the midst of this moment as people realize how much the Democratic and Republican parties have cheated them at a real, true voice and choice and say. So if you want to learn more about our campaign, go to Dario.com. You can sign up to our volunteer list. You can sign up to our email list. And we wish money was not a part of politics, but every bit helps. You can also donate there as well. Thank you once again for the pleasure of being hosted by you, Oregon Greens.
I'm Susan Buchser Lochocki, and I'm running for president of the United States with you all, the Green Party. And thank you that I could be here today. I'm really happy about that. What I have to say is I am working on a mobile phone, and I'm working on my newer mobile phone. So I can't see how many minutes have gone by. So whoever is keeping track, just chime in when I've got 1 minute left, and so that I see that I have just 1 minute left. Okay, so I'm a mom, and I'm a Dadaist and a peace promoter. I'm also a past Unitarian Universalist president of the UU in Basel. I'm a women's rights activist, and now I'm a presidential candidate. I'm currently living in Switzerland, and I'm calling you from Switzerland. But I was born in California and traveled around. My father was in the Air Force, so we moved around quite a bit. I lived on Guam, and then Rochester, New York, and then New York City. And then I met a nice Swiss guy, and I came to Switzerland. And I've been here for 20 years. But I'm coming back. I'm moving back. I have a place in New York, but I'm planning on doing some traveling. So that's the general thing about me. I'm dressed in a traditional suffragette dress. You can't see it so good, but I am promoting women's rights, and it's the 100-year anniversary year of women's rights to vote in the United States. Yes, so congratulations to all of us women. It's been 100 years, and that's quite an achievement. And yeah, so you know, I'm really happy about that. But you know, women, we do have a lot of issues that need to be addressed. But I think right now, with what's going on in the US, I think we have to put maybe some of the women's issues a little bit on the side, and we have to focus on the African American and even Native American and even Asian American issues. You know, there's and I should say also Latin American people too, but I have a tendency to put them in with the European Americans. But, you know, I don't know, that's for another conversation. But for me, it's clear there is huge problems, and this is all over the government. It's government-wide, from the very low level all the way up. So we really have to work on this problem. And one thought that I had recently was, I think that the mayors need to have town halls where they get people together, and they need to pick out some people from the community. The local community needs to pick out about 5 or 6 really good people that they all know and trust, and then have those police officers that locally normally patrol the area talk with these people and figure out which ones are really for the community and which ones might not be for the community. And then I think we should possibly send some of these people who need some better peace training someplace else to get some peace training. I think this is an emergency. I think it needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. It's enough. So I personally don't have much more to say, because I think this is just a pressing issue, and I think dialogue is the only way forward. So I'm going to say that's all I'm going to say at this time.
Thank you, Oregon Pacific Green Party. My name's Howie Hawkins. I'm seeking the Green Party nomination for president. I'm a retired Teamster. I was a construction worker before that, but I've been an activist since the 1960s in civil rights, the anti-war ecology movement, got involved with the Greens at the first national organizing meeting we had in 1984. Have stayed involved ever since. Ran 3 times for governor in New York, got us a ballot line every time. I think we're in a situation now where the whole country can see that the 2 governing parties presiding over this country are presiding over a failed state. The coronavirus has exposed that. Every other country that knows what it's doing is testing, tracing, and isolating the infected. We have 4% of the world's population. We got 30% of the infections and the deaths. So that's one thing. Trump is incompetent and really indifferent. Biden is invisible. And when he does pop his head up, he's incoherent. You know, why are we testing, tracing, and isolating, damn it? You know, there's no direction there. And then in the last 10 days, it's become clear for everybody now to see that this has been a failed state for Black America the whole time, a centuries-old pandemic of racism. So I think for the Green Party, it's an opportunity for us to step into that political vacuum and really advance in this election. So I just came from the Syracuse Black Lives Matter demonstration. I was so proud of the organizers, 2 of whom are longtime Greens, Rozzy Seals and Nikita Slade. And they uplifted the youth who've been marching all over this city for 10 days. And their speeches were very clear. They told people about all the brutality, even rapes by police, pensions for people that shot Black people in the back, and awards. And they lifted that all up, and then they talked about community control and Black power in the Black community, because they're not waiting for the racist reform. They want to get rid of the racists. And, you know, that was very uplifting. I've been out there all day. I just found out about this. I'm glad I did. So I've been emphasizing 3 life or death issues. The climate meltdown. And I was the first candidate to campaign for a Green New Deal. We want a full-strength Green New Deal to get to 0 to negative greenhouse gas emissions and 100% clean energy by 2030, because that's what the climate science says a rich country like the United States has to do. As part of that Green New Deal, we've always talked about an economic Bill of Rights, because we have an inequality crisis. Working class life expectancies are declining now. That's unheard of in a developed country. So we want the right to a living wage job, an income above poverty, affordable housing, comprehensive health care, lifelong public education that's tuition free, and a secure retirement. And then you've probably seen the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists moved their doomsday clock as close to midnight as they've ever had it. We're in a new nuclear arms race. We're modernizing the forces. The last bilateral treaty between the US and Russia expires next February 5th, and none of the major party candidates even talk about this. So what I'm calling for is deep cuts in the military budget by 75%, bringing our troops home from these 7 official endless wars and the over 100 countries that we do special ops in every year, and these 800 foreign military bases, pledge no first use of nuclear weapons, disarm to a minimum credible deterrent, and then go to the other nuclear powers and say, with 122 other nations that agreed to the text of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, we want complete and mutual nuclear disarmament. And those tension-reducing initiatives by the United States should set the table for that. And with world public opinion, we can move that way. And I hope Greens up and down the ticket make this nuclear arms race a top campaign issue, because it's a life or death issue. So my campaign has got some lawyers helping states that need to get on the ballot, get relief in this coronavirus situation where it's not good public health to go out and get physical signatures. We're about to qualify for matching funds, the only campaign in any party that will do that. And with the credibility that those benchmarks make, being on the ballot and getting matching funds, we hope to inject our green solutions into the national debate. So I'd be honored to have your vote in your green primary. Thank you.
I have a question, Pavel Kornilovich from Carvalho's question to Dennis and Howie. And it's about your handling of the national debt. What are you going to do with it? Thank you.
No, the Green Party has a platform plank. There's basically a modernization of the Greenback proposal back during the populist movement. We're using the section of the Constitution where it says Congress has the power to coin money. We can issue debt-free money, spend it in the economy through the federal budget. And that way we can increase the monetary supply without borrowing from Wall Street. What we do now is issue treasuries, and the investors buy them, and then the Fed can create credits and buy them off the market after they've been sold. But in the end, we got to pay it back. And what that is a transfer of wealth from the mass of taxpayers under the current structure. Labor income's taxed more than capital income. So it's a burden on the people that isn't necessary. Now, the other thing to be said is, given that the dollar is the reserve currency of the world, we can borrow what we need for things like a Green New Deal and coronavirus emergency measures. So I don't like the debt. I don't like the transfer of wealth to the rich that it represents. I think we need the Greenback proposal to pass, but in the meantime, we should borrow what we need to deal with the climate meltdown and the people's needs. And
thank you.
I got a little more
time.
I'm
sorry.
We should tax the rich more. Labor income should not be taxed more than capital income. We need more progressive estate tax, wealth tax, income tax, and corporate profits tax.
Thank you, Alex. Dario? And then whoever else wants to jump in.
That question was towards Dennis.
Oh, it was. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it right. Thank you, Alex. Dennis?
Okay, to understand what the national debt is, it's basically that we're borrowing money on our future to spend on things that we think are important today. Unfortunately, a big burden of that the debt has been rested upon the working class, and a lot of that debt comes from our military spending, which is way out of control and has gone over $120 trillion higher since Trump got into office. So anybody that says the Democrats or Bernie are against war, just look at their voting record. They are clearly not against funding for war, as well as the arms deals. So realistically, the way I see us ending our national debt is first is reduce the amount of spending that we're doing that's deficit spending, that is not actually depreciably helping our communities. We need to turn around and spend that money investing more into our communities, similar to programs with my renewable investment infrastructure program, where we're giving the opportunity for communities to build housing for the homeless, where we all know that there's not a lack of housing, but there's a lack of affordable housing. We want to reinvest in rural and urban agriculture that directly benefits the communities where they're serving. And then reduce our military spending. I want to spend more than half of our military budget on this renewable infrastructure program, where we're allowing communities to build their own renewable energy programs that will not only feed and support that community, but be able to have them reduce their taxes in that community to actually fund services that are beneficial to those communities. We definitely need to stop making money easy and cheap to bankers and make it a lot more easy for the people to use, and spend our money in the right directions, like renewable energy programs and healthcare for our people, instead of endless wars.
This question in regards to dealing with the national debt, I just want to point out what was a colleague of mine, ending the military. Our campaign is the campaign that's at the forefront of promoting that, and instead having a Department of Peace. Peace building actually costs less but produces more, and that's what we'll be engaged in. This idea of taxing the rich is something that Democrats often bring up to deflect away from the need for real system change. And yeah, I support, as an interim stopgap, taxing the rich, but we ultimately need to create a system where we don't have people enriching themselves off the backs of workers. We need to have a more equal system. In terms of the greening the dollar, I need to unpack that a little more for some who aren't familiar with that. We're talking about democratizing the money supply, getting rid of the Fed, having a monetary authority, and basically crushing banks' ability to, in effect, mint and create money. It's a very important part of our platform, and more people need to know about it. But I am more focused and more concerned, I won't say more, I think the things are intertwined, but it needs to be at the forefront of our conversation. Americans' debt, the way that they've become slaves to this hyper-capitalist system. They've been forced to become that. The system has made them out to be that. We need to forgive student loans. We need to forgive all these pernicious debts that exist as a function of this hyper-capitalist abusive system. And that is uniquely a part of our COVID-19 plan. In the midst of this crisis, more than ever, we need to focus on relief for real, everyday Americans instead of the 1%.
Is there any presidential candidate would like to answer to?
Please go ahead.
David, I would like to answer.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, well, so what is money really? Does it really exist? It's just a bunch of numbers. The regime or the U.S. regime or the Federal Reserve is like not even printing. They're creating like tens of trillions of dollars and distributing them to the rich so that they can buy up everything during this corona apocalypse crisis. And that's not right. We need to put the billionaires on trial and for everything they've done to like almost destroy the world so far, and take all the resources away from them and distribute them to the people under like some democratic governance led by working class Black and Indigenous and oppressed people. And then we'll like see what's going on with the numbers and the money, and probably just ignore the debt. Things will be different. So we need a revolution.
Thank you, Mr. Rolde. Is there like any other candidates, please?
Yeah. Yes.
Sedinam would like to see if Chad and Mr. Kent would like to respond first.
Sure, I'll say something. It really made me smile what David just said. And first of all, I think we have a bunch of great candidates. I'm not going to take pot shots at any one of them. I believe in supporting our nominee, whoever that person may be. Really, our society has a problem with putting material wealth above people. So we really need to step back from the materialism to handle all of this. So I would welcome a mass movement, for example, of everyone not paying their mortgage or their rent, and then figuring out how we're going to fairly proceed. Ending the Federal Reserve, which is a private institution, certainly changing our money system, but even more than that, not trying to transform our existing system in a subtle, quote unquote, manageable way, but really getting down, taking a radical approach, getting down to the root of our problem, which is materialism. This is a highly materialistic culture, and that's just wrong, and it's failing, and it's a great time for change. So thank you. That's it.
Okay, any other candidates want to address that question?
I agree. I think Kent and David were on point with that. Absolutely. It's quantitative easing. And you have to look at what the Pentagon, what they lost, 20-something $trillion. They can't find it, account for it. And all the trillions that have been spent on war, Afghanistan, Iraq, and of course David brought it up, just the recent $1 trillion that were spent out. So there's no real deficit in that manner. These people, they've stolen it, and they've stolen it all sorts of ways through lives, and everything we have is everything's been paid for, healthcare, everything. I mean, because these people have been basically stealing people's lives to enrich themselves, enrich their families, and to continue this whole process. So I think it's right. We have to have like a revolutionary change in how we approach society.
Thank you, Chad.
I would like to move on to the next question from Dirk.
I wasn't able, I didn't get a chance to address it. I waited till everybody else did.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I never did. Let's be real clear. Green system change is from Sedinam 2020. I'm really happy to hear other people start using these words that we came out with February 2019. Green system change looks at the economy based on ecological wisdom and ecological economics. Nothing can happen, no deal, no rights, nothing without us having a fundamental change in how our species, relates to the earth. Our platform, nice words, but it's inadequate. So we talk about green system change, and that's looking at the Earth's biodynamic system. No other species pays for food, rent, shelter, and education. Only human beings, birds, animals, nothing. So we got it wrong. The earth does not need us. We need the earth. So there has to be a fundamental paradigm shift in how we see ourselves in relationship to this planet who does not need us. In the end, Earth will always win. So our campaign since February 2019, green system change, and that's based on ecological economics. No deal, no rights. Let's get it right. The other thing is, within green systems change is anti-racism. Racism and capitalism are conjoined twins. So anyone that's not talking about ensuring that our party becomes anti-racist and anti-capitalist can't lead us forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dirk.
Yeah.
My question is about raising the minimum wage, which is I'm for, but then causing inflation and how the inflation will be dealt with. I think it was Dennis that claimed that he was going to raise the minimum wage, but I'm not positive about that. But any of the candidates can comment on this question.
Well, now, just for the sake of time, if you can minimize the question to 2 minutes stop each, and we'll start with Sedinam this time.
I can be the last one, please. I just wanted everybody to be heard. I can wait.
Go ahead now. We're
Okay.
timing. Yeah.
You know, the reality is that every state has a different standard of level for rent, for schooling, for food, for housing, I meant by that, rent. So unless we have a fundamental change in our current capitalist traditional system that's not backed by any money, we have a great monetary reform within our platform. So I always have to take us back to how the founding of our nation was based on rich European American males. So someone saying my sound is distorted. So am I clear now?
That's better.
Yes, now yes.
Okay, thank you. So let's take 3 steps back. First and foremost, our nation was 13 British colonies. How did that happen? The doctrine of discovery based on the 15 European monarchs going to the Pope and saying to them that, hey, we don't want to fight. The minimum wage is a loaded question that has to take 5 steps back. First and foremost, we have to take it back to this is a capitalist system. So within capitalism, it doesn't matter your wage right now. It's about the other aspects of your life. So in a green system change system, step 2, at the beginning of our founding of our nation, we were 13 colonies from the British. Step 3, that came about because of the doctrine of discovery, where the Pope facilitated a sort of Bloods and Crips with the European monarch, a truce, so that these European monarchs can rape, rob, pillage, and kill around the whole planet. The U.S. came about because those colonies got tired of paying taxes to them without representation. So step 4, women, as Susan talked about, this is 100 years of suffering. Black folk were enslaved, 3/5. Native Americans were trampled on their indigenous rights on their land. Poor European Americans who are not landowners could not vote. And then everyone else who helped build this nation. Black folks, reparation. So you have to keep taking steps back to understand that it's not as simple as raising the minimum wage. It's about green system change, which is based on ecological economics. So we always have to step back. We can't just start with that. We have to reimagine and reorganize ourselves because the earth does not need us. We are the only species that pays rent, earns money, has to buy food. No other animal has to do that. So as a Green Party, our platform has not gone far enough to help people understand. That's why our campaign is against the Green New Deal. Without becoming anti-racist, we can't have any fundamental change. I believe I've done 90 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like just like randomly to the candidates. Let's go with Mr. Howie. Go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
On the question of the minimum wage being raised would cause inflation, right?
Yes.
We haven't had wage push inflation in 50 years. It's not going to happen. That's because we've had globalization and a labor market that's international. So the unit labor costs in the global south are less than half of what they are in this country. If wages go up here, production is moved overseas. So what we should be talking about is open borders so labor can move. And we can organize the working class across borders. And we have agreements that lift up wages where they're bottom in the global south. And the only place where you might have wage push inflation is in the monopoly sector, where they can just pass on costs because it's a shared monopoly, an oligopoly, or it's a monopoly. In that case, they should be either broken up, if that's appropriate, or made into public enterprises, where we can plan the production and not add to the cost just because we're paying people a living wage. So the other thing I would say about the minimum wage is a good way to raise it is to have a job guarantee where everybody gets a living wage, and then the private sector has to compete with that public sector job guarantee. And that would be a good way to move the wages up very quickly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me go to Mr. Kent since he sent some answers in the chat. Go ahead, Mr. Kent. 2 minutes for you.
Oh, sure. One thing that I would encourage people to do a search on is a term that I heard when I was campaigning in 2008 in Pennsylvania, and that is purchasing power parity. So I would basically be echoing some of what Howie was talking about. This really is an international issue, and we can't just solve a problem here at home without considering how it's going to happen around the world. So yeah, I have some concerns when we start talking about economics, for example, raising the minimum wage being one of them. And regarding economics in general, again, the best way for us to really approach this would be relocalization, trying to take us out of this game, and it is a game. I had a thought regarding guaranteed basic income, universal guaranteed basic income, which I think is a great idea. And I think many Greens support this. Even before Andrew Yang was talking about that, it was making the rounds in the Green Party. So those who do research will find that Greens are actually ahead of Democrats on many important issues. A problem, though, with the guaranteed universal basic income that needs to be addressed is that, for example, landlords could just game this. If they figure that you and your spouse are making so much per month, they're just going to raise the rent. So what I would like to see is some sort of infrastructure improvement tied to that allocation. For example, whether it's solar heating or solar electric on your building, making it so that the individual can get outside of the economy. Thank you. Time.
Thank you, Mr. Kent.
Thank you.
Now, is there like any presidential candidate would like to comment, just to save time? If you would like, just go ahead.
Sure.
Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a green guarantee. That's what I call it. We have the resources that we need. We can reclaim, renew, reuse, and repurpose. There's enough material to make sure everyone's of course, fed, clothed, housed, of course, education, and of course, we need to work on nutrition. And by doing permaculture and really developing these ecosystems from small towns to large towns and working from state to state is going to give us that breathing room, because the certain things should be a basic human right. And I wanted to say that because the idea is we have to design a system that supports independent contractors, co-ops, and people basically working for themselves, working direct to consumer. Because we have our phones right here. You have your expertise, what you do, and you sell your product directly to consumer. You sell 1,000 people $100 product. That's $100,000. So we have to design a system that allows for that. And co-ops and having the internet, having communication, we can do so much there. So it's not about as much as the minimum wage is understanding that we own our labor and we have to realize what our labor is worth. And we can communicate and say, hey, I should be getting paid $20 an hour if I'm going to come in and do this or whatever to lay this concrete foundation. You know, instead of getting paid $10 an hour, you 5 guys get paid shit. And then the guy that has the contract is getting $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. You know what I mean? You put together your teams, and we have to set it up to make it easier for people to work for themselves. And how to take this, we can take our plastic and 3D print with it. There's no reason why people aren't clothed. I mean, there's tons of Goodwills and thrift stores and everything. We just have to look at what we have and realize what we can accomplish with what we already have. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any President, Mr. Lambert, but
Yeah.
you have a lot of noise, background noise.
I'll be real quick. The reason why I chose $25 an hour as minimum wage is because in 2016, when I ran for Congress, if we adjusted minimum wage with inflation, it would have been $22 in 2016. I think this is more a redistribution of wealth than it is creating inflation, such as a universal basic income would do. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter, Susan, and who else left?
This is David. I'd like to answer.
Oh, go ahead, David.
Okay, well, first I agree with Sedinam that we need to end capitalism and have ecological economics and the colonial, the racist or colonial imperialist system. And I mean, we're giving trillions of dollars to billionaires and corporations, and it isn't causing hyperinflation yet. We need to take the resources away from them and give them to the people. And we need economic human rights. Everybody has a right to housing, to good healthy food, to healthy water, and clean air, and you know, good, like, holistic or otherwise good medical care and education, and even to like some discretionary money. So, you know, it's not under capitalism, it's being organized in a sustainable way, and people have a right to human needs, and we've taken the resources away from the billionaires and corporations, and we're using them to sustain human beings and to sustain the earth. You know, we can't separate it. So that's what we need to do. It's not like about a specific number of dollars for minimum wage, although like at the moment, $25 an hour isn't even enough. I think like adjusted by inflation, the minimum wage was like higher than that 50 or 60 years ago. So that's my
Thank you, Mr. Rolde. Any other candidates?
Oh, I have one more thing to say.
30.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please. Go ahead. Please.
Also, I don't agree with Howie about the open borders. I'm for open borders just because of the borders in the United States, just because they're illegitimate colonial borders that the U.S. regime doesn't have a right to control. But people have a right to stay in their own country and live there. We shouldn't have borders like to keep capitalism going and have have people able to cross the borders to equalize, to let the free market equalize wages everywhere. That's not right. We need to have the U.S. stop its imperialism and colonialism around the world and let people have their own economies. You know.
Thank you, Mr. Rolde.
Okay, can I go? Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead, Susan. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so minimum wage. I'm living in Switzerland, and here the minimum wage for like a cleaning lady is $35 an hour. So for me, I think that should be a minimum wage in the United States too. The quality of life is not that much different, and it certainly shouldn't be that much different if we're walking around telling everybody that we're the greatest country in the world. If that's the case, then it should be 35 per hour. But with that said, my thought is that because of the mess that we have right now, with people unemployed and all this having to support all these different businesses between restaurants and airports and just everything, hospitals, everybody's losing money right now. And our economy is really all messed up. I think it's just easier to get rid of it all. This is an opportunity to step forward into a moneyless society where everybody can do what they really want to do and be what they really want to be. And I also think that working 5 days a week or even more is too much. I think we need to slow down a bit. I really liked the great pause that we had during the coronavirus crisis. It was nice. It was peaceful. We had some really, I could hear birds everywhere, and it was really nice. So I don't know why we're rushing forward to get back to this rat race that we all hate so much. So that's my agenda, is to really, for the US, we could have that. If the rest of the world wants to join us in a moneyless society, we can also do that. And then we can really have open borders. And we can bring people from places like Syria who are in deserts where, it's 50 degrees, it's like 120 degrees there. They need to get out and get to a better place so they can live happily.
Thank you, Susan. I think the only one who didn't answer is Mr. Hunter. Go ahead.
Yes.
2 minutes.
Thank you. And with all due respect to the questioner, and I thank the questioner for raising this issue because it's a bogeyman that's often raised by Republicans, Democrats, all the people with their hooks into your pocket for capitalist purposes. They raise that boogeyman to scare you away from getting a wage that actually allows you to live off of it. And the reality is that we've seen in the past that people have been given wages that are more closely aligned with the actual cost of living, and the sky did not fall. In fact, in the context of capitalist reckoning of economics, it's recognized that it's quite possible in that context and understanding that pay increases could mean increases in spending, that it's possible that above inflation increases in minimum wage can occur without a negative impact on inflation, because in the context of that economic system in theory, multiple factors go into inflation. Here's the bottom line, folks. I'm not a capitalist, and I believe we need to transition into a socialist system where workers own the fruits of their labor, and we need to have local control in regards to setting wages that are pegged to the actual cost of living. No more of this trickle down, voodoo economic nonsense. No more of this abusive capitalist system that convinces you that the harder you work, the more you'll get, and you'll be able to actually live a decent living. It's not working. And cost of living differs all across this country at present. And so as we transition, particularly as we transition to a system that takes care of basic needs for all Americans, housing, food, water, these are guarantees. We need to be mindful of the need for community control and say and choice and voice over ensuring people have a livable wage pegged to the actual cost of living where they live. So brush aside that inflationary bogeyman in the context of a system that wants to continue to enslave you, and recognize that we do need that fundamental system change to a system that takes care of everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. There's a quick question, yes or no, and if there's yes with condition, please go ahead. This is for all of you, just yes and no. UBI. Go ahead, Mr. Hunter, since you're here.
I've been at the forefront of pushing for UBI, our COVID-19 plan.
No, just yes or no, sorry.
UBI.
Yes or no?
Well, that's a yes. Sedinam.
C.
Susan.
What's UBI?
Universal Basic Income.
Oh, yes. I call it mother's care or mother's pay.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Kent. Chad. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Kent. Just yes or no?
Just repeat the question, please. I'm sorry, I was distracted in the chat.
UBI, yes or no?
I lean toward it, yes.
Mr. Howie Hawkins.
I'm for a guaranteed income above poverty. It's a form of UBI. It depends how you define it.
Well, thank you. Who left?
Boss.
Oh, Mr. Lambert. Please go ahead.
I don't agree with UBI because it's purely inflationary, but I do believe that we need to increase people's income that are on Social Security disability and Social Security retirement by at least $1,000 a month.
Well, thank you so much. Now let's move on to the next question real quick. Oh, David. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm for UBI only if it's on top of the current economic entitlements and economic human rights, not like as a way to replace them and keep capitalism and take away people's medical care and other things, you know?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to the next question from Mr. Kuhn, Bradley Kuhn.
Yeah, I want to first of all thank all the candidates for coming out and the organizers for organizing this. It's really appreciated for those of us Green voters here in Oregon. I have respect for the organizers. I already formulated my question in the format they asked for. My question was directed to Dario and Howie. My feeling is the best thing that a Green candidate can do is attempt to get media coverage, attempt to bring up the issue that the two-party system is not working. What plans do your campaigns have for if there are debates, which there may not be due to COVID-19, or other types of events and other mechanisms? What are your plans for getting press coverage and getting interest in the Green Party at the moments when people are paying attention to the election?
Well, thank you so much. So let's start with Mr. Dario to just avoid upsetting Sedinam. This is a joke. So go ahead.
Thank you. You know, as a member of the Youngstown, Ohio Board of Education, one of the things that distinguished me was the fact that as I was doing things on behalf of the parents and students of the district, we were also connecting fruitfully with the press. And that means having an infrastructure as a candidate to do that, knowing how to build press releases, knowing how to build those relationships. And we were able to do that. And we continue to be able to do that over the course of this campaign. We have gotten press attention nationally, in local areas as we have had events, and also internationally, everywhere from Germany to Israel and in between, particularly on the issue of advocacy for Palestinian rights. And that isn't by accident. It's because that we have a plan, a strategy, and we have the skills to put forward to ensure that we make that media list work. We're connecting with the media on a regular basis. Now, we know that there is a media blackout against Greens. We know that's the case. But one of the ways that you can push past that is by building aggressively those relationships, by ensuring that you create compelling press releases that can stand in for articles and make jobs easier for journalists, and that you build that infrastructure and those connections. And it's important to connect it to things that you are doing. For instance, we got press attention for connecting with an activist in regards to Palestinian rights in Palestine. So you have to keep moving and you have to keep doing while you're building those media connections. And we've been successful very much at doing that. We're going to take that strategy into 2020 as the nominee of the party.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hawkins, 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, of course, the first thing the media says when they pay attention to us is, why the hell are you spoiling the election for Biden? My answer to them is, no, Biden's spoiling the election. The Democrats are spoiling the election because we've been giving them the proven nonpartisan solution to the spoiler problem, which is to get rid of the Electoral College and have a ranked choice national popular vote. So I've been attacked by Bill McKibben in the New Yorker, Noam Chomsky in the LA Progressive, the Washington Post, the New York Post. They're all coming at me on that, and I'm coming back on them with a ranked choice national popular vote. And McKibben said, well, you should drop out and campaign for ranked choice voting. Hey, Bill, if we're not in the race, it's not even going to be raised. I don't think Biden even knows what it is. And certainly Trump doesn't, because he knows nothing about nothing when he says he knows everything about everything. As far as debates go, forget the Commission on Presidential Debates. It's a private corporation of the two parties designed to keep us out. The League of Women Voters, I think we can get them to step up like they used to, reclaim their spot as the major civic organization, get national broadcasting, and every party that has enough ballot lines to win the electoral vote, which would be 4 of us, Libertarian, Green, Democrat, Republican, I think they'll sponsor a debate. We were successful in New York getting that kind of debate in 2018 when Governor Cuomo didn't want to debate any of us. And we got to feed the reporters, make our story interesting, regularly communicate with the national reporters, and some of them will cover us. And the other thing is, first of all, we got to get on as many ballots as possible, hopefully all 51. Matching funds will help, so we're seen as a serious, credible campaign the reporters can't ignore. So I think those are some of the ways we get into the debate.
Thank you so much. Now, is there like any candidate would like to comment? You don't have to.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely. Well, you guys got, is that all right? Right here? Ready? Okay. Ask yourselves why aren't we getting any press coverage? Why isn't anybody engaged in our primary and what's going on? Because we're not promoting it. That's the first thing right there. We're not doing anything that actually promotes us out there. Our communications director was paid for by was on Hawkins' payroll this cycle, and as soon as he got into his role, they share outside events, outside organizations to promote and qualify, while the party's not doing anything to promote. The only candidate that the party's promoting is Lisa Savage, and Lisa Savage is not even endorsed yet by the party. They were saying we're going to run as a Green, got all this excitement, been using our platform, sharing it, but she's not even actually, at this point, she's running independent, not even endorsed by the party. And of course, David Dunham, which is on the communications too, and then you got David Schwab. These people are paid people on Lisa Savage things, but if she wins, she's not going to win as a Green. If we're not running people as a Green, if we're not using our resources for us, we're using it for outside organizations, and that's what's going on. So, and Dario ignored Jimmy Dore's request, Primo Nutmeg's request, and Rob Placone's request. Jimmy Dore's request. So the reason why he did that is because they wanted to hide the primary. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want anybody to know what's going on. They made this deal. In fact, Dario and Howie actually campaigned together back in October. And so now Dario's speaking out on the issues that's going on in the party because he was asked point blank, but he didn't have anything to say during the Ohio debate or the Idaho debate. And that's why we're not getting anything done, is because we're not actually promoting it. We're using the resources to grow these other parties, grow these other things. Because Hawkins is going to, if he loses a nomination, he's using all those ballot lines he got with our ballot access coordinator to run with this SPUSA against us, against the Green. He's not running for the Green if he loses a nomination. So that's why the affiliation rule's in place, and they gave him the official recognition. They used that to basically rig the primary, rig people from getting debates.
Apologies.
That's why.
Thank you so much. Before going to the other candidates, I would like to give 1 minute for Mr. Hawkins and Hunter if they would like to respond.
No. They wait to the end. No.
Okay, sure.
They
go ahead.
Interfere in a discussion. No.
Go ahead, but then we'll go back to Mr. Hawkins and Hunter.
No problem. That's how it's done. This is an easy thing. As a PR expert and former owner of a public relations company, you have seen the debates came about because of this Black woman from South Central. Our party has not helped in any way promote this primary and us candidates, but you will know about the debates because of Sedinam, Moyowasifza, me. Knowing how to get press is simple. Dario, Howie, Dennis, step off the race and endorse me, the only Black woman running. I would get 15% in 2 days, supposed to be on that debate. We need to change the paradigm. We have 4 more debates out of a 9 series, and no candidate outside of Chad has helped make those happen. You need a PR expert. As a former campaign manager for Cynthia McKinney, as a former campaign manager for Veronica Fembray, the first Black woman trans who ran for governor, you need an experienced person who knows how to do that. Look what I did right now. I told you it's not okay, and you followed me. You need leadership. But guess what this leader did? Step to the back. No one running I'm sorry to say this, only because my sisters and brothers, Dennis, Chad, and Susan, don't have the experience with the Green Party to understand our culture. Howie did one good thing. He joined a meeting one time. Dario has not had enough culture within the Green Party to understand how we work. If it makes sense, we do it. Poor Dario didn't even show up on no call for all of us to get together and talk. So it's really important that we get someone who knows how to do on the national level.
Well, thank you, Sedinam. Just to clarify, this meant to be a question, not a debate. So I hope the presidential candidates.
A debate, because you have people who don't agree on how we move forward, and you have people who have had European male privilege. So there's no way I'm not going to speak when I have them. So you can ask them questions. Ask them about their privilege.
Yeah, sure. It's your time. It's your time. We'll move on to other presidential candidates if anyone would like to comment. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, so this presidential election, it's not a real election. It's a phony stage drama put on by billionaires who select a Republican and Democrat candidate to like pretend to run against each other, and they let like third-party candidates, the Green Party and other candidates in just to make it appear more democratic that they're letting like other people run. So we need to stress that the Green Party candidate needs to be using this platform that they've given us to speak out against the system and for a real revolution, not to like ask for like small reforms in the process and to like, because it can't be reformed and fixed by like having like little reforms like ranked choice voting. I mean, I'm not against ranked choice voting, but that's not going to fix the problem. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead if you have, if you'd like to respond. President's candidates. Go ahead, Mr. Ken. The question was about the media attention. How do we get it to grow the party?
Yeah, I didn't see if I had my hand
up
to before Howie.
Susan never got a chance to speak.
Or Susan. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, she should be there. Yeah, go ahead, Susan, if you would like to go first.
No, Kent, go ahead. You started. Please.
Okay, I wasn't watching all the screens. I just want to chime in that the expression "bend down so long that it looks like up to me." Well, that kind of describes the Green Party. We need candidates who increasingly talk as though we can win because we can win, and I am seeing more of that. So I'm pleased to hear the commentary change a little bit. My concern too is that is regarding labeling. If we label ourselves as a largely left organization, then we're cutting out people who are more moderate and those who are more toward the right. Nader talked about majoritarian issues, as he termed them. So my concern is that we present green issues in more of a majoritarian light, and and invite everyone. And I am hearing signs of this in this group, but really there's no good reason why we can't win this election. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. And that will help with media coverage.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, so one thought I had to get attention is to, there's a lot of homeless, and they're on the streets, and they can actually vote, apparently, but they're probably not registered. So we need to go to them, help them get registered, and talk to them. Show them how to do everything, and perhaps they need a little support to get an ID card or something so that they can vote too. I don't know. We have to look into it. But I'm going to be coming back to the States in mid-July, and then I was contemplating getting an RV, something with it like a shower, because I think that's the other thing. With the homeless, I think a lot of people would help them, but they smell. So they need to take a shower. So that was my thought, was to go to different states to where some homeless are, get the Green Party members to join me, And then we help these people. We give them a coffee, maybe lunch, and we talk to them about registering and maybe even registering green. And, we can get the press to come and cover what we're doing. I think it's a great idea, and there's lots of homeless, right? And now people are unemployed too, so we have lots of opportunities there. We should look into that.
Thank you so much. I think the only one who is left is Mr. Dennis Lambert. If you would like to comment.
I just want to say that I've been trying to get media attention, and I've appeared on Libertarians podcast. So I'm not only trying to reach out to mainstream media, but non-traditional media, not only on the Green platform, but on Libertarians, Republicans, and Democrats as well. So I think we need to build not only from the Bernie Crats or the Bernie Bros, but build the party in all parts. So we need to be reaching out to as much media as we can and try to build those partnerships with whomever we can.
Thank you so much. I think we should go back now to Mr. Hawkins with regards to Chad Wilson's comment. You have 1 minute, Mr. Hawkins. Go ahead, please.
Well, I've been trying to run a positive campaign, not run down the other candidates, because in the end, whoever the nominee is, we all got to get together behind that candidate, which I will do. If I don't get the nomination, I will support the Green nominee, because in about 40 of the states, the presidential vote or the coattails of the president for another statewide office determines whether the party will have a ballot line for the next election cycle. The Socialist Party endorsement is functionally an endorsement. They nominated me, but it's functionally an endorsement because they don't have any ballot lines. So I won't be running against the Greens as a socialist. But getting the Socialist Party nomination and the endorsements of other organizations is part of our effort to build more unity on the independent left in the course of this campaign. And so I think we're trying to build unity. And, it's just not true that I'm going to run against the Greens if I don't get the nomination.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hunter, would you like to comment? I think he talked about not appearing on some media outlets that would help the campaign. Would you respond to this?
Just briefly, we did appear on Placone, we did appear on Primo Nutmeg. Dora refused to have us on and has not had on any Green candidates. I hope that changes. I hope all the candidates get an opportunity for that. As to us campaigning with Howie, I think that would be news to both of our two campaigns. I wish all candidates the best, but that's certainly not the case. We need to support down ballot candidates. And we as a campaign have done that through our hashtag See Greens Lead initiative, because we need to build up a sense of what Green leadership means in local communities to strengthen us as a party, make us out to be a more viable force. And that will feed into our ability to participate in debates, get more media coverage, because being on the ballot is important, but not enough. It wasn't enough in Ohio, where I was very active as a Green candidate. We need to have communities see what Green leadership looks like, and our campaign's committed to ensuring that.
Thank you so much. I see you chat like raising your hands, but this is not meant to be a debate.
Well, let me just respond. Well, just let me respond.
Can you make it short?
Okay, real quick, because the thing about the SPUSA, it's a FEC recognized political party, and he is a member. He's been a member since 1973. So if he loses the nomination, he already said that he will still run with the SPUSA. He said that. So he's either lying then or lying now. So all the ballot, because our ballot access coordinator is also on his payroll. And so all those independent lines, because that's what they've been focused on, not our Green Party getting lines, independent lines, that he will run the SPUSA as an independent through those things. And so it is a nomination. It is not an endorsement. It is a nomination. And the thing about Dario is that Jimmy Dore won't let you on there. Steph says it many times because they sent you a thing and you ignored it. You ignored it. You may not be getting on there now, and that's because they were offended that you would not get on there. Over 700,000 people, over 800,000. He's like one of the biggest progressive voices, and you ignored that. That is clearly that you were not trying to promote the party. You tried.
Briefly, that's simply not true. And if you're going to allow this to continue with a back and forth of reprisals and people arguing with each other, I would ask that the moderators actually stick to their own rules about this. But I'm going to respond directly to that and say that that's unfortunately not true.
Let me ask this. Let me ask this.
Can we stop?
Yes, please. This is not meant to be a debate, and it is really important to just like answer the question. So because we are voting today, and a lot of the voters are here and listening. Andrew Pyle, a question on this stack. Would you like to go ahead, Andrew, and ask your question? You can unmute yourself.
Sure thing. Thank you for having us. I appreciate all the candidates being here today. My question earlier, before this got a little bit derailed, was about public education and reform, and how the candidates would like to see K-12 and then further education reformed to better meet the needs of the American people. That's it.
Thank you so much. I would like to start with 1 minute for each candidate. Sedinam, go ahead, please.
You see, I was trained with Pablo Freire, the Brazilian educator who almost ended literacy on the continent of Africa. As a literacy specialist, literacy for me is much more important than reading and writing. It's about critical thinking. So our nation system, though there's some best practices in public education that I've benefited from, Head Start to university. Here in California, my state, former governor, Democratic governor, Pat Brown, created a system that worked. But due to the capitalist influence, it's now overpriced for a normal person, a regular person, especially folks of color. So through the green system change, education would be free from preschool to PhD. Unless we have the most educated and critically thinking individuals, we will not achieve by 300 a perfect union. So I'd like to, again, invite everybody for us to all join in an open dialogue and discussion about being anti-racist based on what? Those 5 things I talked about, and cognitive dissonance. So I see that that's my time. Sedinam 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sedinam. Susan, do you like to go first? Second, I mean. Sorry. Go ahead, Susan.
There. Hi. Okay, so for me, education is really important. I want to already start with kindergarten, having the teachers teach a little peace training and a little bit of history about the different groups that we have in the United States. So about the African Americans, about the Native Americans, about the Asian Americans, about the European Americans, and also about women's issues, because women seem to get lost in the history book somehow on all levels. So we need to also promote women a little bit. So I would like to start those sort of classes already in sort of kindergarten levels, just lightly to learn a little bit, and then bring that all the way up to certainly 12th grade, and then of course into university would also be great. Because I think the more we know about each other, the more peace we will have and understanding. And then I'm with Sedinam, completely free education. And yeah, I mean, I'm also for having no money. So of course that's free education.
Thank you
but
so
if
much.
we have to pay for something, private schools, then they can charge something, but public schools are free.
Thank you so much. David, if you would like to go ahead and answer this question.
Yeah, teach children the truth, not a bunch of nationalist, imperialist propaganda. Teach children to think for themselves, and within the context of their community, we need, Black community control of education in the Black community, Indigenous control of education in the Indigenous community, but basically now the way education is now, it's very authoritarian and traumatizing, and it leads to traumatized adults who are dysfunctional, and that's not what we want. We need empowering education. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennis Lambert, go ahead.
Oh, did he have to take off?
Is he here?
Oh, wow.
So go ahead, Dario, please.
Sorry, I had to unmute. You know, as a former Board of Ed member in Youngstown, dealing with a state takeover, a number of issues that I'd like to see happen. You know, we need free ed pre-K through college, of course, the Green Party supports that, but we need true community control of education. We need to end these nasty state takeovers. We need to get rid of charter schools. We need to end backdoor takeovers through control of corporate contractors making money off our children's academic suffering. We have to increase standards and skill expectations to ensure our children leave school equipped to enter the workforce and enter college. We need ecological education and we need cultural education. We need African-American history. We need the history of all the founding peoples of this country, First Nations, Latinx peoples. We need to end teaching to conservative texts coming out of Texas. We need to end educational racism. We need to end teaching to the test. We have to invest more in trade schools and fund HBCUs. And we also have to support, fund, and increase the number of minority educators. There aren't enough educators in districts like Youngstown to serve as role models to students and show them what happens when you go through the education system successfully. 2% of our teaching force is Black male, and even less than that appears in the Youngstown City School District subject to a state takeover. We have to handle all of those issues.
Thank you so much. Chad Wilson, would you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. We got to be creative in how we distribute education. First of all, I mean, we have it right now. I mean, you can damn near learn anything right now. Go on YouTube and find out how to play a song, how to grow something, how to weld something. You know, the skill sets are there to learn. We just have to realize that we need to take control of our labor and own our labor. So I say that because everybody should give the opportunity to focus on their own interests rather than this system of just, you know, rinse and repeat kind of thing. We have to build skills around interest and create like an achievement, a merit system that allows us to do more trade. You know, such as, I mean, of course, healthcare needs to be a not-for-profit model and be able to educate a bunch of people on these certain, you know, jobs and be able to distribute workers where they're needed rather than having these overbloated things and stuff. So we have what we need.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mesplay?
Thank you. Yeah, part of the problem is that we're seeing right now with the social unrest is that we really don't teach critical thinking in school. So most US citizens have, I would say, a difficult time looking around them to really see what's going on right now and to understand what's going on, but they have an even more difficult time, in part because our culture is so rushed and we really don't discuss things, but more difficult time in looking what's upstream, where things came from, and what's downstream, and how things connect. So we certainly need a more creative school system. The current education system, the model is based on a factory, and people are churned out here in this country in a place where factories themselves are not supported any longer. So we do need radical reform. One thing I learned as a teacher is that it's good for us all, of course, to be lifelong learners, to never give up that quest for knowledge. And we certainly live in a society right now where we can do that. What we need are institutions that we can trust. Thank you, time.
Apologies.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hawkins?
All right, 6 points in 1 minute. We need equitable funding. The federal government should pay for education through progressive income and wealth taxes, take it off property tax, which is inequitably distributed. Tuition-free public education from childcare and pre-K through K-8 through post-secondary, college, trade schools, and continuing adult education. 3, stop the privatization into these privately managed charters and the high stakes testing, which dissuades or sets aside important things in school that the tests don't deal with, like critical thinking, teamwork, and creativity, which should be fostered. And tracking. Every student at every level should have the opportunity to take both vocational and academic courses. And finally, desegregation. We've become more segregated by race and class over the last 40 years. That's going to require the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to very aggressively go after these district lines, which are the new Jim Crow lines that keep our schools segregated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're doing really a good job. We got the question within 6 minutes. 7 minutes, and all of you answered that. So we can move on to the next one. I think, Mr.
Sedinam, go ahead,
Did we miss
Sedinam.
someone?
We are one race. We are human race. We got to stop saying that. We're one race. We're the same species.
Take it over, Ibrahim. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Sedinam. Would you mind go ahead? Would you mind me to go ahead with the next question?
Yes, I just wanted to make one fact clear. That was it.
Thank you so much. I think Mr. Kenneth Kearns has a question.
Thank you. Are you guys ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so my question was originally for Dario, but I'd like everyone to respond. Reducing military spending and cutting back on military, how would you address aggressors around the world that are, rising up as we speak without having military? And so my question was specifically about his Department of Peace, but then other candidates could say what their strategies would be. Thank you.
I would like to go ahead with Mr. Rolde first. Go ahead, please.
Is he
David?
there?
David Rolde?
He might have had to step away for a minute. We
No,
could throw
I
him on later.
was just muted.
Oh.
The so-called United States is not a legitimate country. It's an illegitimate colony on stolen land, oppressing people, oppressing the indigenous people and people who were brought here from Africa and other places to be enslaved here. And there's no right to self-defense for an illegitimate colony, just like so-called Israel doesn't have a right to defense. And there are no aggressors. The U.S. military has never defended it. Everything the U.S. military has ever done has been aggressions against other countries or against people here. So I don't see that as a serious issue, that we need a military to defend us from other countries. So.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hunter.
Sorry, on mute, folks. That's a great question, and it's one that goes very much to the heart of how we're going to have fundamental system change, because up to now, how we see things is that we have to have a military, we have to defend ourselves, and defense usually equates to offense in the American perspective. We are engaged in wars all across this globe, and that all has to come to an end. We are going to, quote unquote, protect ourselves and protect the planet for humanity by working shoulder to shoulder with nations as equals. We are going to build up the quality of life for all of humanity, for the entire planet, so that we can minimize and end conflict, and we're going to work with other nations as equals. We're going to work in international efforts to ensure that we keep the peace, instead of imperialist, colonialist efforts abroad that are funded to keep the military-industrial complex going, and that are done in concert with other countries that are also abusing their citizenry or people who should have full rights of citizenship, like Israel. We're working hand in hand as a country with them, and that has to come to an end. When we end this colonialist imperialist paradigm and reconfigure how we see the planet and our space and place in it, then we will have a different sense of what defense means. Because right now, this country sees it as offense, as invasion, as quote unquote regime change, as coups, as capitalist abuse and takeover. That all will come to an end.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. Susan, would you like to answer this question?
Sure. Well, I actually plan on keeping everything the same, but changing what we do with the military. I want to upcycle the military to a training program where everybody gets to join in. You come for about 3 months every year, and you get trained at a new skill, and you also meet people, and you see parts of the country or even the world that you've never seen before, and that maybe you never had the opportunity to see. Now, the reason why I want to do that is because I know the value of bringing people together from diverse backgrounds, and it creates peace. And that's what I am here for. I'm a peace promoter. That's what I do. So I know how to bring people together, get them to work together, learn new things together, and promote peace. So that's my concept.
Thank you so much. Sedinam, go ahead, please.
Okay, this is a question about the Department of Peace. We have to recognize that justice without peace, can't happen without justice. So unless we become green system change, which is ecological wisdom under ecological economics, and also anti-racist, it's a joke to talk about Department of Peace. Justice weighs heavier with anybody than peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict. We can disagree, but if we have a mechanism in place that our disagreement is not going to affect who I am, the color of my skin, my religion, my gender, my sexual preference. So I think this is where you gotta look at these individuals who talk a good game about structural changes, but they're not talking about system change. And system change is directly connected to ecological economics. That's why this New Deal is a non-start. If you still have colonization mentality, even if you talk about rights. So this is about leadership. So you have to challenge anyone who throws these great, grandiose ideas and is not attacking the core issue. Capitalism has to be stopped and changed through green system change that our campaign has been talking about since February 2019, and also anti-racism. We will put up the Department of Anti-Racism.
Thank you so much. Chad Wilson, would you like to answer the question?
And this is, I think this has to do with approach. You know, we have to realize that everybody thinks that they're right, and what we've done to the world is atrocious. So we need to start holding people accountable. This old money and the new money, and how we've been, how the people that have been running our country and what they've been doing. So we need to hold accountable and acknowledge where we have destroyed lives and destroyed the world, and understand that the root issue of a lot of these uprisings and things are because of us. We're, you know, for fanning the flames. And the thing is, nobody trusts each other. Nobody believes. They don't trust. They don't necessarily always believe, because the way the narrative is always trying to be controlled. So we have to understand language and look at cultures and identities and be able to use language that they understand in order to reach them where they are, and be able to, again, all these false flags that we have a full transparency of all the shit that we've done in order to start building off of truth. And once everybody knows the truth and we have certain things out, of course, it's like I said, time makes more converts than reason. So we just have to have, again, a planned action blueprint for individual cultures, individual things.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hawkins?
Of course, you need a military to stop aggressors. There's a difference between imperialist wars and anti-imperialist wars. How the hell were we supposed to stop Hitler, Mussolini, and Tojo? With a peace department? Obviously, you want to oppose imperialists who are invading people or committing genocide. Now, it wasn't the main purpose of the US, but with Marine Corps air support, the Syrian Kurds saved the Yazidis from genocide by ISIS. It was about 5 years ago on Mount Sinjar in Iraq. I believe that was a righteous cause. That don't mean the US should be occupying the Middle East, but they happen to be there, and in that case, they did the right thing. And we want to do this multilaterally as much as possible. Turkey has now invaded northern Syria because Trump just moved the troops away and said, go ahead, because he don't care about the Kurds. And as part of NATO, the US and the other NATO powers should have stopped Turkey, a NATO ally, so-called. And they did nothing, and the UN did nothing. So that's a problem. But multilateralism, we have a peacekeeping force in Sinai that's kept Israel and Egypt apart. The U.S. has a contingent there.
Thank you, sir.
That's a righteous deployment.
Thank you, sir. I think Mr. Mesplay is the last one. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm hearing some really good ideas here. The United States is making itself a target, perhaps unknowingly to most people, because of our exploits around the world. Way too many US citizens think that our job is as the world's police, and they actually believe that when we go in and violently suppress movements and overthrow governments, that we're doing it because we care so much for democracy. Yet here in the United States, alternative party candidates are routinely arrested trying to get into debates. These are ballot qualified candidates I'm talking about, and this has been going on for a very long time. So we need more democracy here. Basically, if we step back from the international situation and we look at how to solve this, where physical force is needed, it needs to be more along the lines of, shall I say, community policing, smaller scale. We need to defund war. We need to make war for profit untenable, to take the money out of war, because it's the money that's driving these wars. And we can all be on the same team. For example, I envision a movement wherein across the world, we have nations banning the death penalty and then getting a reward for that. And one reward would be to be able to. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ken, Mr. Mesplay. The stack was like deleted, so I don't know whose question would be first, Dan or Emma. And I know Dan has questions about wars, so I'm gonna go ahead and let Dan ask the question because we're talking about wars. If it's okay with Emma.
Okay. Is it? Apparently so.
Go ahead, Dan.
About a week ago on the call that you did then, I asked you all about the peace process in Afghanistan, and it was a bit of a curveball just to see which of you were actually aware of it. And now I'm going to go kind of current again and ask you how you envision the United States' role diplomatically and otherwise engaging with China, which, along with Russia, is in the current under the current administration, the State and the Defense Department designated as a near peer power.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. I would like to give Susan now the first response. Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, you know, I like Chinese people. I think we can work with them. Yeah, they've got more people. They have the potential to be a lot bigger than the U.S. as far as economic power. But I think they have, you know, we've always had a reasonable relationship, and I think we can certainly keep that going and maybe expand on it. Again, if we go my route of working with no money, then economy size doesn't matter anymore. It's about the quality of people's lives. So, you know, we can maybe learn from some Chinese wisdom that's out there, how to live nicer and more peaceful together ourselves.
Thank you so much. Sedinam, please go ahead.
Three things. First and foremost, you were speaking about continental relationships, and secondly, historic. Our nation is a baby when it comes to involvement in the world. So we're immature, as our government is now very immature. And thirdly, we haven't asked our citizens what it is we want to achieve. Again, this was not based on the America wasn't based on caring for its citizens. It was about a capitalist approach to looking at the world. But under Moyowasifza Curry administration, we are about being anti-capitalist and green system change, which shows our level of maturity. Since 1945, the human species has been able to annihilate ourselves. It's time to have frank discussions about ecological economics with every world power and every culture, because our species is at risk.
Thank you so much. I'd like to reiterate the question again. It's about the relationship with China and Russia. Do you view them as adversaries or not? So I would like to move on and give the mic to Mr. Dario Hunter.
Thank you. No, I do not view them as adversaries. In fact, we need to work with them more fruitfully in order to solve this issue of climate change. They're at the top of the carbon emitters list. China, Russia, we can and we must be friends and build better relationships with them. The saber rattling that's taking place is really only to aid CIA talking points, to aid the talking points of this two-party, broken, bankrupt, corporatist system. And we need to break through that because the time is short. We must hold hands, link hands together, and solve climate change together. And our Green Path Forward plan accounts for that. And we've been very consistent in regards to our foreign policy approach on this. We have not bought into the Russiagate nonsense. We've not bought into the talking points of Syria. We are all about building better relationships with countries because we realize time is short and we must work together to save this planet, folks.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mesplay, please go ahead.
Repeat the question, please.
Then can you repeat the question briefly?
Oh. How do you envision the United States' relationship with China now and going on into the future?
Well, very positively, actually. If you look at China and you ask yourself how many hundreds of bases do they have around the world, you come up with, I think, pretty close to zero. That doesn't mean that they don't have any influence. China's an old, rich culture. They have their problems as we do. Donald Trump brought back the federal death penalty. I believe that was late last year. I think a lot of people miss that. And with what's happening in the streets, you have to raise your eyebrows and wonder what's coming next. So we can't say we're better than China. I envision an era of friendship between the superpowers of the world because, people are people. We all have our basic needs everywhere, and we need more citizen diplomats because our politicians are, less than useless. They're actually quite harmful because of the influence of money, materialism, greed, poor upbringing. I don't know what it is exactly, but something has to change. We're past a breaking point now, obviously. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't see them as the enemy, not at all. I see those that our enemies have nothing to do with countries or whatnot. They feel above that. They're far-reaching than just the American system. They just use the American system in order to create the outcome that they want. This is what's called social engineering. So understanding about Russia, we have to understand the propaganda that's, especially with this Russiagate. First of all, there was no proof that Russia hacked our election or interfered with our election. The original goalpost started with the WikiLeaks leak of the DNC leaks, and it was never actually investigated by the FBI. It went through CrowdStrike, and CrowdStrike just came out and said that they found no evidence of that hacking. That was the original goalpost, and they kept beating the drum, and that's how they kept doing. And then, of course, the Mueller report was BS, and so there was no evidence of Trump colluding. So what happens is that when they beat that fear drum of fake stuff, it gives a legitimacy to the argument of people that were in the, most people are in the two-party system. So we have to acknowledge where truth is truth, and when the broken clock is right twice a day, you have to acknowledge that. So China and Russia, we have to build a relationship and start undoing and unpacking all the lies through the propaganda.
Thank you so much. And I think last we have David. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't view China as the enemy. The imperialist capitalists, they use the United States and our military to be like threatening World War III against Russia and China because the Western capitalists do not yet dominate Russia and China, and we need to overthrow the regime here in the United States. And to the extent that there are problems in Russia and China, that's up to the people there to improve their system. The governments there are a lot more rational than ours, and all that Russiagate stuff is not true. And it's possible that the deep state actors in the United States developed the coronavirus as chemical warfare against China, and we need to not have any more chemical warfare. That needs to be banned everywhere, starting here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Now we are about 5 minutes from the time, so I would like to give 1 minute for each as a closing statement. And,
Hawkins is raising his hand.
I didn't get to answer that question.
Oh, sorry, sir. Go ahead, sir, and you can have 2 minutes to answer the question and then close.
Oh, I thought it was only 1 minute.
1 minute for the question, 1 for closing.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
And then 1 minute for each.
Okay.
Okay, 1 minute on China and Russia. U.S. policy is full spectrum dominance and to prevent the rise of another U.S. superpower. And that's wrong. We should welcome other countries developing and becoming more powerful, particularly economically. And our attitude and our policies toward Russia and China are aggressive, and that's wrong. We do need to negotiate with them on climate, on the nuclear arms race, and on trade. We're right now having a trade war with China. And to me, it smells of the anti-Asian racism we saw during Vietnam, coming from Trump's crowd. Now, we should speak out on human rights and democracy to these countries, but we're not credible until we clean up our house at home. And then you want my concluding remarks. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I'd be honored to have your vote. And if I am the nominee, I promise you I will work as hard as I can to get as many votes as I can for the Green Party. And we come out of this race much stronger than we went into it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hawkins. I would like to give Chad now 1 minute to close the closing statement. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you guys for doing this and allowing us to speak and be involved. Not every state has been so kind to do that, so we really appreciate it. And this is about the nomination. The nomination is about the party, being the face of the party, about the resources, how to use these resources, how to use our influence to shape the political realm. And that's what I understand, how social media works, how branding, how art direction, all these different things that are going to help propel us into a new form of politics. And I also wanted to bring up too that Jesse Ventura said that he would reassess the situation if we had a brokered convention, and with everything that's gone down with Hawkins' campaign and them cheating and doxing candidates and stuff like that, I believe this will be a contested convention or will be brokered. So as candidates, as leaders, we should be able to have the conversation as coaches would about putting their best player in at that time. So I would want the party to have that discussion, because it would be an opportunity to make sure we got on debate stages, make sure we got ballot access, make sure we got the final funding. Chad Wilson, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Sedinam, would you like to give 1 minute to close the statement, please?
I also echo my fellow presidential candidates in thanking you all for having the green-centered values of allowing all candidates to present. There's no first-rate or second-rate candidates. We have all campaigned. So I'm very grateful. And I want to thank you for last time giving me delegates. And I want to challenge you to vote for me as your presidential nominee for 3 reasons. One, I'm a 4th-generation farmer. There's no other candidates running who have the understanding of the land, the sea, the water that I do. Secondly, I'm Black American. I'm degreed in Black Studies, and I've been the only one pushing being anti-racist, because it's tied into capitalism. I'm for green system change. No one else is doing that. Thirdly, thank you. And this is my song, Paint the White House Green, 2020, Sedinam.
Thank you so much. Susan, please go ahead.
So I just want to say thank you that I could be here. I know I'm not one of the official Green Party presidential candidates, but I am one who's unofficial and trying to make a difference. So thank you that I could be here. Then apparently I've been told that I don't ask this enough, so I'm going to ask you to vote for me as a presidential candidate and eventually the nominee, hopefully. and eventually President of the United States. So please vote for me. And I'm Susan Buchser, Lochocki. Then I would like to just say that my main platform is bringing change, a revolution in lifestyle. So that's really it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for being here. Mr. Hunter, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you once again for having me, folks. You know, I never thought I'd be in a green race running against a candidate who would use the phrase righteous deployment. We really need to reconfigure our specs on this to meet this moment. I believe we need to defund the military. We need to defund a branch of the military known as the police as well. Elected officials are already talking about this to meet this crisis. We have to restructure our approach to law enforcement and have genuine community control for public service and not abuse on the part of law enforcement. We as a campaign are at the forefront promoting the People of Color Bill of Rights, transformative change to meet this impactful moment. And of course, the green path forward to meet the challenges, the environmental challenges ahead and save this planet, heal and save this planet. So to learn more about our campaign, please visit dariohunter.com and please do donate both to our campaign as well as to the party, because both will need strength going into 2020 in order to meet the moment that we are seeing before our very eyes of impactful change. Our party needs to be at the forefront of this, of providing genuine democratic choice to people who are hurting and need healing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Rolde, go ahead.
Yeah, we need a revolution. We need a international investigation of who created the corona apocalypse pandemic crisis. We need to put Bill Gates and the other perpetrators on trial. We need to ban the 5G technology that is hurting us and potentially dominating our minds, and ban like mind control, like technological mind control. Like we need to ban the contact tracing and forced testing with these tests that don't work for the coronavirus. We need to make sure there are no forced vaccinations. We should stop the current flu vaccinations that they have. And we need to support the pro-Black protests, but they need leadership to have demands, and not because they're being co-opted by the Democrats and George Soros to try to say that Trump is the problem and replace him with the Democrats. And that's not going to work. We need a revolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mesplay.
I'm urging unity. I really believe that this is a key year for the Green Party. One thing that a number of things concern me, but one thing right off the bat I will say is that when we have a spike in COVID-19 cases, as we likely will have, there will be a spike in fear, and people will trust our untrustworthy government and the corporations that could do them harm. Gates was mentioned. In a manner that that they really shouldn't. It's uncalled for. So we really need to be vigilant. I've talked about climate chaos since 2004. Unless I forget, I would like your vote. This does matter. I appreciate your support. The Green New Deal, to me, just as it's laid out, represents good governance for a change. Honor the treaties with indigenous people, or with indigenous nations, and this is supported by law. This is the supreme law of the land. The treaties are. Anyway, make sure you vote. Whoever you are, if you're planning to not vote especially, please flip your non-vote green and dissent with Ken. Thanks.
Thank you so much.